I want to share with you a story. I heard this story about 19 years ago from Rabbi, Shlita the Mashgiach in Shara Torah. And just a little while ago, I called up Rabbi Chaim Foyer, the son-in-law of the Medober in the story, the son-in-law of Rav Gifter, Zichreinu Livracha, to verify the exact details of the story. And Rabbi Foyer told me that the story is true, and that the story was discovered during Rav Gifter's Shiva, that a roommate of Rav Gifter, Zichreinu Livracha, from his days in Ritz, came in and said the story during the Shiva. He said that in Rav Gifter's dorm room in Ritz, he had a mirror with a frame around the mirror. And around that frame, the inner lining of the frame, he had tucked in pictures of various Gedalim. And then in the middle of the frame, there was a banner. And it read, "Why not you?" Rav Matis Robert said the story in conjunction with a different thought. And he said that he remembers when the Ger Rebbe Shlita came to America together with Rabbi Aaron Leib Steinman Zichreinu Livracha for the first time and introduced to the American public Rabbi Aaron Leib Steinman. People were talking about how it's a Kiddush Hashem, it's unbelievable, it's like the Jewish Hollywood. And then it occurred to him, Jewish Hollywood, what are we doing? We're celebritizing our Gedolim. He says, what's the definition of a celebrity? Asked Rav Matis Roberts. So everybody knows that they're never going to be able to be a basketball player, to slam dunk like Michael Jordan. And everybody knows that they're never going to be able to hit a ball like Barry Bonds, and everybody knows that they're never going to be able to sing like Michael Jackson, and everybody knows they're not going to be able to be a quarterback like Drew Bledsoe. They're not. Because they're larger than life. They're celebrities. That's not for me and you. And almost no one dreams of becoming the next Michael Jordan. It's not for us. We're never going to play basketball like that. Said Matis Roberts, when we look at Gedolim, when we celebritize them, it becomes the Jewish Hollywood. What are we doing? We're saying the same thing. We're never going to be able to become like them. They're a freak of nature. But that he's such a tzaddik, that he's so saintly, that he knows so much Torah, that he knows all of Shas, that he knows all of Paiskim, that you can ask him any Torah question, he can give you an answer, that he understands so much about life. That's a freak of nature. And that's where Rav Gifter was just a little bit different. Rav Gifter was that all-American boy, born in, I don't even remember the name of the town of Virginia, grew up in Baltimore, but ended up becoming one of the first American-born Gedolim, Torah greats. Because he had a different viewpoint on it. Why not you? He looked in the mirror when he was a young bacher and said, why not you? This week's Sadra, beginning of Sefer Devarim, Moshe Rabbeinu begins to recount all sorts of things that happened in his 40 years at the helm, at the leadership of Am Yisrael. Throughout Klal Yisrael's journey in the Midbar, in the wilderness. One of the first things that he recounts is he says that he asked himself, Eicha esa levati tarchachem umasachem v'rivchem. How? Woe to me, how am I going to be able to do this? How am I going to be able to manage you, Am Yisrael, literally with all your fights and bickering? and the burden that you present. And Rashi on the spot explains even more. He's entirely, you understand the challenging, that they challenged Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu say, how am I going to be able to handle this? And then Moshe Rabbeinu goes on to explain that that's why he had to create the whole judicial system with various more minor level courts until eventually only the very complicated issues would get to him and he'd have to deal with it. Now, I'm going to ask you, think back. When was this whole judicial system with the Asaris, the Me'ai, Alofim, when was that created? In Parshas Yissachar. And it was Yisro's idea. Yisro came, he saw what was going on, and he tells Moshe Rabbeinu, No tivol gam ata lo tov. It's not good what you're doing. You're going to get worn out, the nation's going to get worn out. You got to change it. And then he tells them this whole judicial system to create. And we never see Moshe Rabbeinu responding, Yisro, you're right. I'm worn out. I can't handle this. Later on, we see episodes like that. But not that. So what happened? Is that really what happened? Moshe Rabbeinu was feeling desperate. He was in despair. Or was it Yisro who just came with this genius idea? And why didn't Moshe Rabbeinu tell us about this beforehand? Why doesn't the Torah tell us about this beforehand? Why does it wait till Moshe Rabbeinu's last words to Am Yisrael to tell us this? Klal Yisrael was about to be at one of the most monumental changes in history. They had been led for 40 years and heard shir every day for 40 years from Moshe Rabbeinu, aside from twice 40 days when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Har Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights and didn't eat and didn't drink. Moshe Rabbeinu was a leader who glowed. His face radiated with kedusha. He was something superhuman. And now the reins of leadership were going to be passed on to Yeshua. Moshe Rabbeinu was Talmud, an amazing Talmud. He never left Moshe Rabbeinu's side except for when Moshe Rabbeinu was up on Har Sinai. He was there, the closest Talmud to Moshe Rabbeinu. But nonetheless, can you fathom, can you imagine the gap between the leadership of Moshe Rabbeinu, the Torah's made, like Navi, Yisrael, Moshe Ay, Asher Yadai Hashem, upon there was never such a great person like Moshe Rabbeinu. That knew HaKadosh Baruch Hu face to face, Kiviyachol, so to speak, was an immense change in leadership for Am Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu surely was aware of the challenges that were going to face Yeshua and being accepted as the new leader. And he knew people were going to view Moshe Rabbeinu as being superhuman and Yeshua maybe as being not quite there. It's at this moment that Moshe Rabbeinu chooses to let Am Yisrael know that he had his moments of despair. And yes, it was Yisro's idea. Yisro was the right person, in the right place, at the right time, who came and told Moshe Rabbeinu how to fix it, how to get out of his despair. But it came from a Yisro. It came from somebody who was a kaimer, who was a priest of Zara previously. Didn't come straight from the Rabbeinu Shalom's Kodesh, from the divine mouth. Moshe Rabbeinu's lesson is that yes, Manhigim and Gedolim are superhuman and they transcended the barriers of the norm. But to transcend those barriers of the norm is something which is feasible. And even when it's done, even those leaders, they're not infallible. They're human. We see it in other ways by Moshe Rabbeinu with his human compassion. But Moshe Rabbeinu is pointing out now that he too had his moments of despair. Moments of despair don't stare. They don't have an impact on one's godless. It's getting beyond those moments of despair, taking the advice from where it comes and doing what needs to be done in order to get out of the ditch of despair. That makes a person great. Moshe Rabbeinu was letting him know that Yeshua, well, it might seem like a big gap. Why not him? He too invested in becoming great. Moshe Rabbeinu was letting us know, if you want to be great, transcend those barriers. Don't view it as impossible, because you can. Doesn't mean you won't have moments of despair, but to become great means to go beyond those moments of despair. Good Shabbos.